Shred Film, welcome back to the channel. I think part of me becoming a full-time content creator is me being vulnerable with y'all. So there's some things that I want to be vulnerable with y'all about. Just, straight honesty, so you guys can actually understand like deeper into my life, But I am currently about to go hit legs. I know it seems like the last couple videos I've been hitting legs, which it just usually ends up on the days that I'm hitting legs. Which, I'm not going to record my workout. I'm just about to go hit the gym. Maybe I'll record the pump or something if it looks freaking sick. We'll see. Maybe vlog a little bit at the gym if I'm down. And then afterwards, I'm going to talk with y'all for a few minutes and just kind of give y'all some ins and outs, bro. Just kind of give y'all some ins and outs. Maybe some tips. Maybe a little bit of sugar, maybe a little bit of love. So, this is the fit, though. I have a towel here because it snowed yesterday. In the past couple days, everybody. But I got the Fragments on, some Gymshark oversized rest day joggers, and then just this Nike jacket with a tan beanie. We got Gymshark underneath as well. I'm yapping, but I'm gonna go smash legs. I'll see you guys at the gym, maybe for a couple clips. Other than that, I got some important shit I want to talk to y'all about, so stay along. All right, so I didn't know exactly how I was gonna go about this. I feel like I've just genuinely never shared like my story on any sort of like social media platform, like a depth of my story. Like, yeah, I've like, gone into bits and pieces of like what's happened or how I've, came to be a content creator or like what I used to look like, shit like that. But I've like genuinely never gone into depth. And, I mean, there's probably stuff that like my parents probably don't even know / like understand. And a lot of you probably won't understand this or, might think I'm looking for sympathy. I'm not, but I just felt like I should share my story a little bit and kind of like show you guys or like tell you guys how I kind of became a content creator, how I kind of gotten to this point. I guess I'll just start by talking about my childhood. First things first, I played baseball my whole life. Everything I did was baseball from literally the age of 3 to 21. I played baseball. So yeah, I played baseball literally my whole life growing up. That's all I knew. All my friends were from baseball teams. I didn't really have, I guess you could say, a lot of like close friends until about 4th or 5th grade. I met this dude in an art class. His name was Noah. I met this dude in an art class and we just kind of like hit it off, bro. We started hanging out every weekend and he had a younger brother, as do I, that were kind of the same age, which was kind of crazy because like I was like low-key closer to his younger brother, even though I was like best friends with him. And my younger brother was closer with my friend Noah, and he was a little bit older than my little brother, obviously. But yeah, so that was kind of like where like I guess my true friendship started. Other than that, it was always just like, I'd hang out with people here and there from baseball teams or like, I might go to a swim party, stuff like that. But I just like never really fit in with anybody. I never really had a lot of friends. Like I never like really just clicked with anybody, I was always kind of the only reason I'm bringing this up because it plays a huge part, I guess, in the story. I was always kind of like the cute kid, like the cute guy. All the ladies thought I was cute. I always had like little girlfriends in middle school and like high school or like middle school and like elementary and stuff like that. But I was never like, I never felt like I was like truly loved by anybody. Like I just always felt like I was always having to prove myself or always having to show somebody a different side of me just so they, would like me or like I would be more attractive. I guess shit kind of turned for me was I always dreamed of being an MLB baseball player. Always. From like a little kid. That's all I ever did. All I ever did was talk about sports and doing this and playing baseball and, going this and going to this college. But I was about 10 years old, and I basically had a coach tell me straight to my face that I was never going to amount to anything. I was never going to be good. I was never going to play anywhere. And, it almost felt like it was true because all my friends were playing, like, select ball. If you don't know what select ball, it basically is like a higher-end version of, like, what your parents pay for. It's not the Little League. It's like you travel and you go to other states and you go to other cities and you play like these really good teams, and it was like for the really good players, like select ball, And I never like got to make a team. Like I never was like introduced or invited to a team. However, I was always praised for how good I was, how strong my arm was, how fast I was, how agile I was, how good of a player I was. But it just like came back to the point of like I always had to prove myself. That was kind of like my childhood. I always played baseball, always had to prove myself. Then came high school, and obviously, I guess technically in that area of high school, that time period, I was supposed to go to the high school that technically all three of the middle schools that I went to would go to the high school. So I was basically supposed to end up venturing into all my middle school friends and everybody I'd met and everybody I'd been hanging around with, and kind of like, being around the same atmosphere of people. But we moved again, and when we moved, technically we were right on the zone of going to one school or the other, and I didn't really have much of a choice but to go to the new school. The only way I could technically go to the old school was if I was grandfathered in, and so I had to go to the new high school, and because of that, I had to restart. So now I was back restarting again for another year, freshman year of high school. I still hung out with a couple people here and there, like from middle school. I hung out with Noah for the longest time, but then it just came to me making friends again. And I've always been kind of silly. I've always been kind of like goofy. I'm always trying to make people laugh. I'm trying to be the class clown. Not in a bad way. I enjoy making people laugh. I enjoy making people smile. Like, that's just who I am, I can never be mean to anybody. I was never raised to like be a dick or curse somebody out, or like pick on somebody, or pull somebody down because I feel bad about myself. I've just never been that way. So again, tried to make friends, but my high school at that time was literally just freshmen and sophomores because it was a new school. It was gonna be at least a little bit easier for me starting off high school, that I wouldn't have to worry about like seniors and juniors and this big school being filled with kids. And then along came baseball tryouts. At this point, I didn't really have a lot of friends. I kind of just focused on myself. I played with the travel team, so I really just talked and hang out with people outside of school. But in school, I really kept to myself. I didn't talk to anybody. I didn't really like hang out with anybody. Except for the ladies. I've always been like a ladies' man. I've always flirted. I'm a very flirtatious person, so I've always kind of like made my way into the girls' group or like hanging out with the girls somehow. Yeah, and I met a few like super cool girls that I was like really good friends with in high school, like freshman year. It was kind of like, I got into that little group, I guess you could say, with the girls, and then like there was dudes in the group, but I didn't like talk to the guys, I didn't hang out with the guys. Along came baseball tryouts. I basically tried out for the team. I didn't think I was going to make it, I knew it was going to be a little bit smaller of a team. There was going to be a freshman team and a JV team. Again, we only had freshmen and sophomores, so I was really praying to hope, I'd maybe make the JV team, maybe be on the better end. I had a really good tryout. I absolutely loved it. I crushed it. I was one of the better athletes out there. But I made the team. That was all that mattered. I made the team. And that's where I was like, okay, now I can make some friends. Now I can kind of like find my groove. I made the baseball team, which then I met some people, obviously became, kind of cool with people, kind of became friends. Got to hang around with people, but again, I didn't really fit in, so I wasn't really invited to, the hangouts or, the after practice dinners, or like, oh, we're going to this person's house so we can all play video games. Like, I was never invited to anything, so it always kind of hurt my feelings, I've always felt left out, and I kind of just really felt left out in high school, and at this point, I didn't really hang out with too many people that I had hung out with in my past. So I knew a couple kids here and there from baseball, and obviously, like, once I started getting a little bit, like, cooler with some of these dudes, like, I thought I was going to get invited and get to hang out with them and, like, get to go to these parties that these kids were throwing, stuff like that. But I ended up having some really good friends early ages of high school just through baseball. I basically started on a new baseball team, and the coach absolutely loved me. And his son played on the team, as well as some of these other people that I knew throughout early ages of high school / I guess late middle school years that I played travel ball with, that actually basically were family friends of my mom that she knew. So then I kind of like subconsciously knew her kid or their kids. Once I started playing on this team, I was like, I got really close with a lot of these guys. Like, this was a team like that. We all knew each other. We all played well together. Like, we never brought any new people on the team. It was the same kids, same practices, same times. So finally, it kind of felt like I was like, okay, I found my clique. Like, like I enjoyed outside baseball more than I did high school baseball, even though like in high school, you kind of like dream of being the high school athlete, the high school star. And the reason I guess I didn't really like high school baseball was because a lot of the kids kind of like made fun of me, picked on me. I was a little bit smaller, so they kind of just fucked with me. They pushed me around, they made fun of me, told me I sucked, told me I shouldn't be playing, like this and that. And so because I was picked on, because I was messed with, a lot of my outside teammates actually played at opposing schools. So part of the reason I only enjoyed high school baseball was because I got to play like my teammates that I played with outside of school. So it was a lot of fun. But then about halfway through sophomore year, I know I skipped a little bit, but about halfway through sophomore year of high school baseball season, I got brought up to the JV team. I was one of the only sophomores that got brought up, and that pissed a lot of people off. And it was because I worked a lot harder than a lot of other people. And the coaches saw that. The coaches saw how harder I worked, how much of a different player I was from freshman year to sophomore year, which caused a lot of attention and like uprise and like who I was. A lot of the baseball teammates didn't really like me because of it. They thought, they were like, why is this kid getting a shot? He's trash, he's this. So it put a lot of pressure on me, and it made me like really kind of like stressed out all the time playing baseball. When you're like a sophomore in high school, it's kind of when you start getting a little bit of looks for college. It's kind of like when you start getting the eyes of colleges. So at this point in time in baseball, I was really stressing because I just wanted to be better. I wanted to be better. I wanted to be better. I wanted to make the team. Like, I wanted to play on the higher end team. So I started getting to travel with the JV team. I started getting to play, but I was kind of like the sideline guy, like I got to play here and there. But because all these kids were older than me, I kind of got pushed aside a little bit, except for a few. I made good friends with a few of them who I felt like were just kind of like mentors, But most of the JV team was older guys, so they kind of just pushed me aside. I was like this young, little, scrawny, little white boy, like little kid, just being pushed aside. And the few that I did connect with, I started hanging out with them, started like trying to be like them because they're academically successful and, they played well in the field and the coaches loved them, so I tried to like be a little bit more like them, and they kind of took me under the wing a little bit, but it still felt like I was like pushing myself into like being cool with these guys. So we'll skip forward to junior year. This is when I met basically my best friend, I would say now, Adam. I met Adam in a science class, and I had heard of Adam. I'd seen him around school. He played football in high school, so I kind of knew of him. We kind of had similar friend groups / like hangout groups, I guess you could say. But yeah, this is when I started hanging out with Adam. Let me just state, I got braces sophomore year of high school, beginning of sophomore year of high school. I still had braces. I still had braces, okay? I just had to throw that in there because it plays a big role. But this is when I met Adam, and I was always like a very self-confident, but I was never like an outgoing confident, if that makes sense. Like, I believed in myself. I believed in the things that I could do. I wasn't like super big into like going out of my way to talk to girls in high school, but like I did. It was more so just like the girls that I hung out with / like girls that I would meet through other girls, but I wouldn't be like, oh my God, she's pretty, I'm gonna go talk to her, New Year is a big year for high school baseball / any type of baseball athlete or any athlete, because that's really when you get like strict looks of colleges that want to sign you or colleges that want to, make you commit, etc. And it came down to like me talking with a few schools here and there. I'd started like a recruiting app basically that my parents paid for. And basically you would get to talk with coaches one-on-one, and this agency would kind of help you talk to other coaches and email them and give you tips and tricks to be able to communicate with the coach, to be able to stand out. That being said, on my outside baseball team, I became like one of the star players. It was like there was me and 2 other dudes on the team that played outfield that just never came off the field. We always played like we ran the outfield. If you don't know anything about baseball, if you have a good outfield, obviously like as you get older, the ball gets hit further, right? The ball gets hit further into the outfield. So you want strong arm, fast, agility players to be able to play the outfield, and we just absolutely ran it up. We loved it. And our team became super close because we had played together for almost 2 years together now, and we did everything together, right? Like, it was kind of like that. That's why I said I didn't really feel like I fit in high school, but like on my outside baseball team, I hung out with them, and it was mainly just practices and maybe some dinners here and there. And obviously, I started driving the end of sophomore year, so like I was able to go places and do things. Yeah, I didn't really hang out with anybody besides Adam. And I had my baseball team on the outside of school, but in school, just nobody really liked me. I don't know what it was. Maybe I was just a bitch. I'll say it. Maybe I was. I was definitely a little whiny at times. I definitely complained about stuff. but I just didn't have a lot of friends on the baseball team. Nobody really liked me, and partially of that was because I just worked harder than everybody else. So when I tried to stand people up, it made me look worse, I guess. I don't know how to explain that. Yeah, so back to meeting Adam. I met him in a science class. We started hanging out like every day, mainly because we were studying for this class that was super hard, and we got a little study group together, but we basically did everything together. And then this is when I started talking to colleges. In junior year, I started talking to a few, and I got a hold of basically trying to play for Texas State. If you don't know what Texas State is, it's a pretty big school. But they like speed and agility, fast, quick, kind of smaller players that are just scrappy players. I was just a scrappy player. Got a hold of Texas State, and the reason it all plays a role. I got a hold of Texas State through my agency, through my outside team, not high school. But then COVID hit, which absolutely destroyed everything. Obviously, everybody knows about COVID, but COVID hit, and it destroyed everything for athletes. All high school players, college players, like they re-signed players, this and that, a whole mess. So basically when COVID hit, I basically lost all connection with Texas State because they re-signed all their fourth year, their seniors, so it made them all fifth year. So everybody that had scholarships to Big D1s, basically most kids got them ripped, and then that left them leaving them looking for other schools. So obviously, with me not having a scholarship, I wasn't even talking to anybody at this time. And my coach tried to help me get onto this team called Ranger, which is where I ended up playing college baseball. So my outside coach for outside school of baseball, he tried to get me on this team called Ranger. And I was like, I don't want to go JUCO. I don't want to go to this town, like in the middle of nowhere. Like, I don't want to play there. I don't want to play there. And he was like, I think it'll be good for you. Like they have a JV team. And he kept pushing like me to be on this JV team. And the coaches were like, we just don't think you're strong enough yet. We don't think you're, basically all around a good enough player to be able to play at the level I wanted to play at, the level I thought I could play at. So when everything got ripped from me, and I basically stopped talking to all these schools, I didn't really have any options. And the reason Adam plays a role in this is because when COVID hit and we started hanging out every day, basically our parents didn't let us hang out with anybody else. So I was really just kind of strictly like hanging out with Adam. And I'll just state, Adam was not a bad influence. It was just more so the fact of like, kids are dumb. Kids do dumb shit. And I started vaping really heavily a little before I met Adam. So a little bit like towards the end of sophomore year, I started vaping really heavily. But when I met Adam, me and Adam just became cool. We were very like-minded. Adam helped me become more sociably, sorry, I could not get that word out. Sociably confident, right? So he helped me start talking to people more. He helped me start hanging out with people more. It was going to a lot of parties. Adam was a little bit more popular in high school. He had different friend groups. So, Adam was a little bit, I guess you could say, like, on the popular side. So I started meeting people through Adam, which then led me to like going out and going to parties and like staying out late and meeting girls and like doing this. And again, Adam's not a bad influence. That's just the way high school played out. No scholarships and COVID hitting and me literally just hanging out with Adam every single day. Obviously school wasn't in play. They canceled school. So it was a lot of online school. So there was a lot of free time on my hands, and I trained for baseball a lot because obviously COVID was going to end sooner or later. I was going to go to college sooner or later. I still had to play a high school season sooner or later. So I still trained for high school baseball, but this is kind of when I started, I guess you could say, how do I say this respectfully? I guess becoming more confident with women, if that makes sense. Things became kind of easier for me. And then, again, still had the braces on. By the way. I just want to note this, okay? Things were easy when I had braces, okay? Things became really easy. Life became a little bit more fun, more enjoyable. I finally fit in. I finally kind of had a few good friends. Outside school baseball, a little bit on the baseball team. Kids that I met in class, that I hung out with, that were, sports athletes, stuff like that. So life became fun, and it became more, I became more confident in who I was and, what I was doing. And I thought the baseball thing was going to work out. So basically, beginning of senior year, I decided to take my coach up on the offer to go play at the school. I had never seen the place. I didn't know what I was getting into, but one of the kids from the outside baseball team was also going there, and there was 2 other kids committed there, so there was 4 of us supposed to go. And I was like, hell yeah, I've been playing with these kids. It'll be a lot of fun. I'll be able to go to college with them, blah, 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 blah. Long story short, they decided not to go. We all basically committed there senior year. So about halfway through my senior season, I committed there, right? Now at this point, as a junior, I'd already played on varsity. I'm going to backtrack to high school a little bit. I already played on the varsity level. And so now that I was a senior, we're going back to school. You know, things are good. You know, I committed. Everything's great. You know, I started going to parties. I was, you know, getting with women a lot. I definitely would say I became a popular kid. I became cool. Well, junior year when I met Adam, I also met this girl, and I tried taking her out on a date. Again, had braces, just want to state that. I took her out on a date, paid for everything. We went bowling, and we ended up going to Waffle House later that night, and then she just ghosted me, and I was like, okay, that was weird. So when senior year rolled around and I was committed and stuff like that, she randomly came back around and was like, me and Adam were at one of his ex's parties, and we met this girl. I kind of knew of her, and she was like, hey, this girl wants to talk to you again. And I was like, nah, like, I'm not for it. Like, I already tried taking her out. And she's like, no, like, she likes you. She wants to talk to you. She wants you to take her out, blah, blah, blah. I was like, all right, bet. Take this girl out. And at this point, I got my braces off. So I take this girl out, and we basically started dating. So now I had a girlfriend. You know, I was partying a lot. I had a scholarship. Not a scholarship. I was technically taking on a JV walk-on spot. Life was good. I had a girlfriend. I was going to college for baseball. You know, I was taking a chance on myself, just going to a JV spot. And if you don't know what a JV team is in college, at a JUCO basically means community college, and JV is basically the practice squad. So I was taking a chance of going to the practice squad in hopes that my hard work would push me to be able to play there, right? So anyways, I signed. I had this girlfriend. I was partying a lot. And then, just kind of crazy to say / talk about, but I guess I might as well be vulnerable. He basically cheated on me. I feel like I shouldn't go into details because it's really embarrassing. She basically cheated on me, and it was a pretty rough breakup. We broke up, and then we kind of got back together, and then we kind of just like, it wasn't really us dating or talking anymore. It was really just like us arguing a lot. So we broke up again, but then we were still seeing each other and still like sleeping with each other and whatnot. So it was kind of like, it was very toxic. It was very like depressing. Now, mind you, she wasn't even in my high school, nor was she in my grade. She was a year older than me. So at the time, I felt like the shit. I had a girl that was a year older than me, you know. I was going to play college baseball. Like, dude, I was like everything. I was popular. Like, it was kind of like the dream. Story short, after we broke up and things kind of ended badly, the summer was around, and I played summer baseball for my outside school team, and we absolutely we just dominated all summer. It was like absolutely amazing, and we were partying a lot, we were drinking, we were staying at each other's houses, and that was kind of when I really got into, I'll just say a hoe phase. I started sleeping around a lot. I'm not very proud of it. I don't ever really talk about it, but I started sleeping around a lot, and I started drinking a lot, and I literally wasn't doing anything besides training for baseball, hanging out with my friends, getting drunk. You know, I don't smoke and I hate weed, but I started smoking here and there. Like, I can count on my hands how many times I've smoked, but I smoked. I was getting drunk, and I was partying, and I was staying up till 4 or 5 a.m., and I was sleeping with girls, and I just was becoming a person that wasn't who I was and what I was about. And you know, it was like getting drunk and sleeping with a girl and then going to church the next morning with my parents. It was like weird, but I didn't care. I was just doing what I thought was cool and thought I was doing to fit in and be the person that everybody else was, and do the things everybody else was doing. And at the time, I didn't have thoughts about anything. It was just me living life and me doing whatever the hell I wanted. You know, I started getting tattoos, and like I got the first one on my chest when I turned 18, and then I got one on my wrist like 2 weeks later, and then I got one on my back and my leg. I just started getting tattoos, and it was just like, it was a very like time-changing experience. I started treating women with disrespect, and I argued with my parents a lot. My brother wasn't never really in the greatest relationship with my dad growing up, so it made it really hard on me, and I was kind of like the mediator, you know, between them and the rest of my family. Like between my mom, it was always like I always felt like I had to choose sides between my brother and my dad and my mom, and so that was very stressful. So come into senior or freshman year of college, I was moving off. I was super excited. You know, I was sad I had to leave my brothers. My brother was in a really bad mental state with some of the things that he had going on in his life, and it really took a toll on me. Around this time, my mom and my stepdad went through a very gruesome part of their relationship. It was very, very, very sad. I'm not going to go into details about it, but just know, at the end of the day, he was a great provider, but he was not a good person for my mom. Sorry. He treated my mom very shittily, which then caused a lot of problems between him and my younger brother. And then things started happening with my younger brother. He was getting into a lot of trouble. You know, he got arrested and he was getting into drugs, and not like hardcore drugs, just smoking a lot. And it just took a toll on him, and he didn't realize it until obviously as he got a little bit older. So it was very stressful. Like, I was away at college and I'm having all these like horrible family problems, and I'm just 4.5, 5 hours away grinding my ass off, trying to fit in, trying to be this baseball player, like trying to play college baseball. And I always had attraction from older guys because I've always been a little bit more mature. But when I got to college, like, yeah, the older guys loved me. I was like a little bit younger. I was this scrawny little 135-pound dude. Obviously, like, I had always lifted, but going into freshman year of college, I started lifting super heavily. So when all these family problems started going on, and I, you know, was struggling to play on the field and struggling to like get the coach's attention, I started going to lift with a buddy of mine, my buddy Kenny, and he basically taught me how to eat. This is where my fitness journey started. But we would travel to this gym about 20 minutes away. It was at this little like community center. So it was a real small gym, super small, but it had what you needed to start working out. And we literally would spend morning doing classes, go to lunch, go back to classes, go back to, you know, our apartments and eat. Then we'd go to baseball practice for 3 hours. Then we'd go to the cages for an hour, and then we'd go to the gym for 2 hours every single day. So it was the same rhythm every single day. It was a lot of fun, you know, like I found my groove of lifting every single day, going to lifting at 6 a.m. for morning weights, and then going to practice, going to the cages, going to class. So I'm sorry, I'm not sure exactly where I left off. However, I remember talking about how basically I had the same rhythm section. This is like really where I got big into lifting. I was super lean, I was super shredded, and then it kind of became like this thing around school and town. Not really town, but mainly around school. Town was like literally 500 or 600 people. It was tiny, I'm telling you. But you know, everybody was like not necessarily making fun of me for doing fitness or like working out, but it started becoming like a thing. It kind of became this thing of like, oh, you know, Seth was going to the gym a lot. It was kind of like, I wouldn't say the talk of the baseball team, but everybody knew me and a couple other people were going to the gym every single day. But I wasn't making content. I was just like recording and like randomly posting on TikTok or like randomly posting on Instagram. You know, I'd post something here and there, but I wasn't like posting like that. It became like a really big part of my baseball journey because I was getting stronger. I was getting bigger, like really fast. Like I learned how to eat. And once I learned how to eat, things changed for my body, which obviously made me more athletic, stronger, like made me hit the ball harder, made me throw the ball harder, made me faster. And I was super locked in on just being this baseball player that these coaches desire. Now, mind you, at JUCOs, at community colleges, there's not really like an age cap. So I was playing with like 23-year-olds, 24-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 22-year-olds, and I'm 18. I'm fresh out of, I'm 19. I'm fresh out of high school. Like I was 140 pounds soaking wet, fresh out of high school, playing with these grown ass men, bro. So yeah, my lifting journey started because I was tired of being small and picked on and pushed around and tinier than everybody. Became like known that I was lifting a lot, and kind of like coaches started seeing I was lifting a lot. I I basically got called into the office one day. And at the time, I was technically a walk-on on the JV team. But right before I left for Christmas, they told me, hey, we've seen your progress. Hey, you're doing good, blah, 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 blah. You know, when you come back, be prepared to move into the apartments. And there was basically like dorms, and then there was apartments over here, and all the baseball players that were on the team lived in the apartments. It was just baseball players. And in the dorms was like baseball players, golf players, like just everybody that went to school there, right? So it was super dope. When I came back from Christmas, I was like, holy shit, like I'm gonna get to like actually get a chance to play. Like the coach is seeing this and that. Well, when I came back, I moved into the apartments. I started living with one of my buddies that, you know, the one that taught me how to eat, and we lifted a lot. The same kids that signed and didn't end up coming ended up committing there again. So at the second part of the season, I had not only the buddy that I had already known and been there with, but I had 2 more buddies come and play there. So I was like, holy crap, like this is a lot of fun, you know, like I get to see more of my friends that I knew from high school and that I was hanging out with a lot and partying with and, you know, doing all this. But I'm gonna backtrack 2 steps. Before I got told to basically move into the apartments to, I guess, be on the team, I was drinking a lot still. I was still partying a lot. I went out every weekend. Mind you, us going out in Ranger was the school. Us going out in Ranger, there wasn't anything there. If we were going to go out, we were going to drink, and we were going to do shit, it was either at the dorms, which was technically banned. We weren't allowed to drink in the dorms. If we got caught, we got in a lot of trouble. So anytime we wanted to do something, we were basically traveling 45 minutes to an hour to go places, which in that case leaves you driving back home at 3 a.m. with everybody drunk. And we, you know, took turns being DDs, but it was really bad. Like, I was genuinely like a person I wanted to be, but also like still doing the shit that I needed to get away from, you know? Which was the drinking and partying and sleeping with women. It just became like excessive, even though like I was grinding my ass off and I'm doing all this shit to be better and I'm, you know, getting better opportunities. I was still doing stuff that was like holding me back. Basically, second part of the season, I had all these friends, whatever. I was still lifting. I obviously influenced more people to like come lift with us because we were having a lot of fun. It was super like late nights. Instead of going out, some nights we were, you know, like going to the gym super late at night. It was just a lot of fun. It was like we built a like good community with the there ended up being like 6 or 7 of us carpooling every single day, 25 minutes away. However, I don't know why or how, but I like started getting depressed. Part of it was being in the middle of buttfuck nowhere, and the other part of it was me just feeling like I hadn't really done much, even though like I was still doing a lot. But really kind of, I guess where my depression set in was I got called into the office again. This was about a couple months into the new season, or into like the new year. I got called into the office again. But when I got called into the office, it wasn't a great topic of conversation. It was, hey, how you doing? Good. So we know you've been lifting a lot. We love your progress. I was like, oh, yeah, thanks. Like, they were like, well, where have you been lifting? I was like, oh, this little gym community, like a little community center about 30 minutes away, 25 minutes away. And they're like, oh, that's dope. Like, cool. They were like, well, you know, we have morning lifts. Like, why are you lifting outside of baseball? And I was like, well, to get stronger, to get better, like to get bigger. And they were like, well, what does our gym not have everything you need? Does our gym not, you know, provide what you need? And I kept telling them like, oh, it wasn't about that. Like, it's not that the gym doesn't have this, but then I told them, I was like, there are certain things that the gym has. Like, the Ranger gym, my community college gym, was like fucking squat racks and bench presses and some rusty ass dumbbells. Like, bro, it didn't have like machines. And at the time, like, I was getting into working out, so I enjoyed the pec deck machines and leg presses and, you know, like the crazy ass squat machines and like calf machines. Like, we didn't have any of that. It was just like raw weights at the school. So I basically just explained to them that the gym that I was going to and that me and a couple other people were going to was just like a little bit fancier. It had just better equipment that we like were able to use. And he was like, well, you're gonna get injured lifting on your own, you know, you shouldn't be lifting. And he was like, who's going with y'all? You know, we're not really looking into this as an excitement. And I was like, well, what do you mean? They were like, they basically were asking me who was going with me because they wanted to like punish us in a sense. It sounds weird, like, but they hated the fact that we were like doing shit outside of school. Like they didn't like the fact that we were traveling to different cities to like go do things to better ourselves. And it was really weird. So I didn't give any of my friends up. I just said like me and like 5 or 6 of us go. And they kept asking who, and I wouldn't tell them. This is where it really changed. It also changed my view on the coaches, because they were just basically giving me so much shit about like what I was doing, and I was already like in a depressed state, and then I just got basically my ass chewed out for like bettering myself and like lifting weights and like doing certain things to be a different player. You know, I literally told them, I was like, well, you guys don't think I'm strong enough, so what's the problem with me lifting? And they had a really hard time understanding what I was doing, but they didn't like it, to say the least. And then in the middle of the meeting, this was actually really, really, really embarrassing. In the middle of the meeting, they basically pulled up my social media, like my Instagram at the time, and they were like laughing at my pictures. They were like, oh, so you're posting pictures? Like you're posting videos? I was like, I mean, yeah, like I enjoy like recording myself. And they just thought it was like really funny. They basically laughed at me in my face, which really hurt because I was just sitting there like, the fuck, you know? Like I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like at this point, I had stopped drinking and going out because it was like the new year, and a coach had slightly mentioned like, hey, the coaches love you, but you know, they think you're hanging out with the wrong people. So I stepped away from that friend group and that kind of like side of baseball, and I really had to lock in. So obviously with me locking in came the gym more and stuff like that. And then I got called into the office to basically be told that what I was doing was disrespectful and a disgrace to our program, and I was, you know, doing shit that was going to injure me, and they just didn't like it. So after being made fun of, literally in front of all the coaches, and actually there was another player in the office, after being made fun of in front of all the coaches and in front of another player, it really like tore me down. But what was crazy was I hadn't fully started like fitness content at all. It was just literally, I don't know how to explain this, but I would literally wake up at 6 a.m., go to the cages, then I'd go to class, then I'd eat breakfast at the cafeteria, then I'd go back to class, then I'd go hit in the cages again, then we'd go to lunch, and then after lunch I'd go back to one more class, then we had baseball practice for 2.5 hours, then I would go to the gym again, and then after I got home from the gym, I would make all this food and like I was dialed in, eat all this food, and I would watch, like, for instance, Alex Eubanks' YouTube videos every single night. Like, I knew he dropped Monday, Tuesday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday night, I was watching his video. I knew what I was doing that night. Like, there was nothing else I was doing. And the same thing with other creators. I, like, basically just would watch certain influencers. And this is kind of, like, what sparked an interest of, like, the social media. At this point, I played a few games. I started a little bit. But then I was, like, just wasn't getting the opportunity I should have. Like there was kids that would cuss out the player or the coaches mid-game. I remember this one kid, like he didn't play well, and the coach like screamed at him after one of the games, and he took his jersey off on the field, threw it on the ground, and walked off. And he started the next game. So I was sitting there like, bro, what am I doing? Like I'm not getting a chance. I'm being tore down by these coaches. You know, like I'm doing everything I can possibly do, and it's just not working. I've always had to work harder than everybody else, and I still have to prove myself every single day. I don't know why, but I just had a mental breakdown. I basically was getting to the end of the season, and I hated where I was. I hated that city. I hated being there. I hated being around those teammates. I hated, like, I hated myself. I hated being there. And I remember one night very specifically, I was like, what do I do? You know, I kept asking myself for like weeks, what do I do? What do I do? Like, if I'm going to quit baseball, what am I going to do? Like, it's been my whole life. That's all I ever knew. Like, from the age of like 3, that's all I ever did was baseball. Even outside of school and outside of, you know, other activities, all I ever did was baseball, talked about baseball. It's at a really low point of what to do. Now, mind you, I kind of skipped over this part. I didn't really talk about it, but there was only one other point in my life where I felt like this, and it was junior year of high school. I was competing for a spot with somebody for baseball, and he basically lifted more than me during a lift, and I failed my bench PR, and I was supposed to I just wanted to hit the same number he did. It was really stupid. The first week of junior year of high school, I watched my grandmother pass away, which was really hard. She battled brain cancer for the longest time. And one morning it was dead ass on the first day of junior year of high school. I heard my mom crying when I got up for school, and I went downstairs and kind of, was hanging out with my mom, and you could tell she was kind of like on her last straw. And I was just like watching her breathe, and I remember the song that was playing. I remember how my mom was sitting. I remember how my mom was holding her. And the only reason I'm bringing this up is because there's only been 2 instances in my life that I felt the exact same way. So with not really having anybody junior year of high school, not really having any friends, first day of junior year of high school, I just watched my grandmother take her last breath, like physically take her last breath, and it was very very heartbreaking. Like, how do you go to school that day? How do you like do anything? She was like that grandparent that like was always there, I watched her take her last breath, and it made me really depressed, in a sense, because it felt like I like lost somebody that was by my side, Back to the point of when I was about to quit college baseball. Like I was saying, my depression started growing because the coaches just kind of tore me down, and I wasn't really playing a lot, and I was getting treated like shit as a player, not as a teammate or anything, but as a player. I remember thinking to myself, what the hell was I gonna do? Like am I gonna have to I'm gonna quit baseball, and what am I gonna do with my life? I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't tell anybody. I didn't have anybody to talk to about it. So it took a huge toll on like who I was senior year, which is part of the reason why I got into my hoe phase and I started sleeping with women and drinking even heavier. So I was super depressed, and I didn't want to be around anymore. I didn't really care what other people thought. I've never cared what people thought about me, even though I never fit in and I never really had friends. I never cared what people thought about me, but in this sense of people's thoughts, I didn't care about basically what people would have felt like if I had done it. And again, I know this is kind of like a crappy thing to do because I've like skipped around, and it's kind of probably maybe it's hard to keep up, but now back to the point of when I was about to quit college baseball. I remember one night very specifically, like I was saying, my depression started growing because the coaches just kind of tore me down, and I wasn't really playing a lot, and I was getting treated like shit as a player, not as a teammate or anything, but as a player. I remember thinking to myself, what the hell was I gonna do? Am I gonna have to I'm gonna quit baseball, and what am I gonna do with my life? I wasn't really getting a degree. So yeah, I was super depressed because I genuinely felt like I had no direction in life. I felt like nothing made sense for me anymore. I was like, what the hell am I gonna do? So I remember just like laying in bed crying every night. And the crazy thing was I had roommates, so it was really just like me crying into my pillows, and or going to sit in my car to cry, or I would go to the gym by myself later than everybody else would, so I could be by myself. I was just really depressed, and I hated who I was, and I felt like I had no direction. And the only thing that felt like was my escape was working out, because my whole life was baseball, and baseball was my escape. Anytime I ever dealt with emotions, I would just go play baseball. I would do something that had to do with baseball. So when that kind of slowly started coming to an end, it was really disheartening, I didn't really know what I was gonna do or where I was gonna go. So sorry. So but the night that I remember very vividly was I always listen to praise and worship music when I go to sleep. I've done this since probably senior year of high school. But I was listening to praise and worship music, and I just remember praying to God, what was I gonna do? God, give me direction. help me, help me, help me. And I remember just like bawling my eyes out, and my roommate kind of woke up and he asked if I was alright, and I basically just couldn't stop crying, and I was literally like on my knees in my bed with my hands in the air crying out to God, because I didn't know, you know. I don't really ever tell anybody this. I've told very few people this, so it's kind of like, I wouldn't say a big deal, but it definitely played like a huge role in like how my life changed. So yeah, I was just sitting on my bed crying, and my buddy, you know, didn't really know what to do. He kind of comforted me with words, and then obviously the next day it was like, you know, we kind of talked and stuff like that. So then came the end of the season, and I wasn't basically on the travel list for like one of the last couple games. So I decided to quit, but I only told one of the coaches, and I just basically packed up my room about a week and a half before move out. And I basically packed up my room in college and then made a trip. And my buddy Adam was living at Tech at the time, so as he was coming down too, he just helped me finish packing in his truck so I could get everything without like notifying coaches, and I just left. And I didn't really know what I was gonna do other than the fact of like having an interest in social media. It was kind of like in the back of my mind, but it wasn't like something I was like physically trying to do. I was still pretty depressed at the time. I was like really hurt, really broken, didn't really have any direction. And this is like really when I grew closer to God, and started praying more, reading my Bible more, you know, asking God for like ways to, you know, give me some direction, give me clarification. And I decided to move to a city called College Station, which is basically where A&M is, because I didn't want to move back home, because I've always personally felt like moving back home is a step back, especially once you've already moved out and kind of done things on your own. So I decided to move there because it was an hour away from home. So it was close enough away from home, but far enough away that I could still have my own space and feel like I was still doing the damn. Basically, when I moved there, it really got even worse with my depression, because now I knew nobody in a whole new town by myself, and I lived with random people in like a little townhome. So that was kind of sad, because it was like I was restarting again and again and again and again. And that's kind of like when I started making a little bit more content, because it was like one of the only things that I could really distract my time with. I still went to school, but I was making content and just doing classwork by myself and like going to the gym. So I wasn't really doing much, which was pretty depressing, because I didn't really have a lot of people to hang out with. There was a couple girls that I knew, but it was more so just like me, you know, seeing them here and there. And then I remember it was right around early December. My dad asked if I had wanted to go on a trip to New York to meet my grandparents. I had never met them, and basically the reason I had never met them is because my grandpa was never in my dad's life when he was younger. I'm not going to go into the complications. I don't know the full story, so I'm also just not going to tell the full side of that. But he was never around, / my dad was never around in his life. So I never met him. So my dad was like, do you want to, you know, like I've recently started talking to him, like do you want to go out there with me and meet him? And we can also like go to New York and like spend some time in New York City. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, like I could totally use a break, get away from things, you know, meet my grandparents, do something different. And I hadn't really traveled much in a while. I hadn't traveled in a while. So I decided to go on this trip, and still like bits and pieces of making content. I remember I made this like video. This is what blew me up. This is like genuinely like kind of what established me as a person on social media. I made videos like what was it? It was like, you know, like those memes where it was like in quotations, you know, don't do that, and then it was like Rock saying shut up bitch, like that kind of stuff, but like correlated with fitness. and they would like get crazy numbers, but it wouldn't result in followers. It was just like, oh, I'm getting crazy video views. But I remember when I went to New York with my dad, I made this video of me dancing. I said POV, it's gym time, and it was me dancing like while I was getting ready. So like each clip was like a different part of me getting ready for the gym, but it was like me dancing while going to the gym. And I remember it didn't do well at first, and I was like, oh, okay. And then when I was in New York, it just like, I woke up one morning and it had blown up, which really like sparked a huge interest in my social media content and like creating content. And obviously posting a little bit of videos here and there, I was watching social media content just as much as I was like, you know, trying to make content, I guess you could say. So I was watching very little creators, but I was like, oh my God, like, you know, Alex Eubank does this and he does that. And, you know, there wasn't really a lot of creators I watched, but I was watching all these people like make content. So I started like kind of mimicking their content or like making content. So, yeah, that's when my content blew up, and I was like, I'm going to keep making content. And I kept making content and making content. Then I started traveling to different gyms and like to Houston a lot to like meet people like Eric Ogle and Stan Yo and like all these big name creators, so I could like introduce myself, so I could get tips and tricks. And people just loved it. Then I went to an event called Summer Shredding, and I met an amazing amount of people, a lot of family, I would say. And right around that time, like, I'd been doing a lot of photo shoots and posting a lot of content. I was growing vigorously. And I remember hitting 50K right before I went to this event, and I thought I was like the shit, dude. And then obviously, you know, I more so not thought that I was the shit. It was just more so that like I was finally becoming like the people I was intrigued by and the people that inspired me. Well, the cameras ended up dying, but I ended up coming back upstairs and recording like almost a whole nother hour of me yapping. And I kept like breaking down, and it wasn't because like I was like crying or like it was just like I've never really genuinely told my story, and I feel like I went into so much detail with this story, and there was so much more that I could go over. But basically the whole other hour of yapping was literally just me talking about how I've gotten to where I am, and it was just consistency and grinding. And, you know, now I've been able to quit my job. I'm not saying like I'm financially stable or I have like some crazy backing, but now I've been able to quit my job and do content full time. So it just goes to show you, like, God has a plan for you. Genuinely, God has a plan for you. Deep down, when I was in college playing college baseball, I had no idea where I was going to go. I had no idea this content thing was going to be something, you know, a part of my life. But the more I thought I could see my reflection. It creeped me out. The more I kept making content and the more I kept pushing and started getting brand sponsorships and started being able to inspire people, and, you know, people were DMing me talking about how, you know, I've blessed them, or my energy like brings light to them, or it motivates them to get up, or it motivates them to do certain stuff. It was crazy to me, you know? And now I'm at this point when it comes to content where I know I can do something great with it. And I keep thinking to myself, as much as I loved baseball and as, you know, as much as I miss it sometimes, how would I shine not only God's light, but my light on the world? I feel as if through baseball and through sports, I wouldn't be able to do that. I would have never picked up a camera. I would have never gone to some of the events I've been to. I would have never met some of the people I've met. So genuinely, it has been a true blessing. Now, I'm not saying I'm some guru or I know exactly what I'm doing or I'm the best in the game or, you know, this and that, but it only can go better. It can only go further. It can only be better. It can only get better. I can only do better. I can only motivate more people. I can only inspire more people. You know what I mean? I can only bring more people closer to God. So I know this video has been super long, and I really appreciate, sorry, Frank needs to go. I really appreciate if you guys sat here and watched this whole video. It means more to me than you guys actually know. I created a video a while ago about my story, but it wasn't in depth, and I feel like this one was really in depth. Mental depression is a serious thing. I've been through it multiple times. I've even been it since I've been in this apartment. In the past 6 months, I was in a horrible spot when about a month or two after I first moved here. So mental depression, mental anxiety, stress, that is all a big thing. So if you're dealing with any of that, not only can you reach out to me, but you reach out to somebody, please. Not only does God love you, but I love you. And if you're genuinely struggling with something, please let somebody know. It is not something to go through alone. I don't have a lot of people I can talk to about it, but I always have a couple people that I know when I'm going through something. I can reach out. But again, if you stayed here for the rest of this video, you watched this whole thing, I hope you guys can have some sort of alignment with my story, you know, maybe resonate a little bit, maybe feel somewhat more connected to me, not only as a person, but as a content creator that I am. And maybe you'll see my content or other people's content who have their story out as a gift and not just them blowing up or pretty privilege. You know what I mean? So I really, 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 really appreciate you guys if you stayed for this whole video. I love you guys. Genuinely. We can only get better from here. I know I said I was going to make more videos and be more consistent on YouTube. I've had a little trouble with editing and downloading videos. It seems like nothing wants to work for me. But, again, I love you guys. I appreciate y'all. I could have yapped for hours. I still have so much more to tell in my story. There's so much deeper I can get into. Comment down below if there was anything that you have questions about or anything that you'd like to ask, or even anything that you felt like you could resonate with in the video, or maybe you need some advice because you're going through some of the same struggles. And go ahead and like and subscribe if you haven't, because we're only going to get better. And you guys have not even seen half what I am capable of. I don't think you guys realize I'm not just some pretty little face or some pretty little body on social media. I am a very talented person, and I only want to keep sharing my talents and my dreams and my goals and my aspirations with y'all. Genuinely. So go ahead and like and subscribe if you haven't. Follow along for the rest of the journey, because we're only getting started, bro. Genuinely, we're only getting started. I say this all the time because I am nowhere near where I want to be, nor where I know God will have me in the next year or two. So I love you guys. I appreciate y'all. Seriously, much freaking love. Code Shreds 10 on all Gymshark orders, Code Shreds on EHP Labs, and Code Shreds on Regiment if you want some fine looking jewelry for my ladies and for my men. But I love you guys. I appreciate y'all. And as always, bruh, stay shreddy.